challenge. Okay, Dr. Omar. So today our topic is the word ayat as used in the Quran. This is very important, and it has been used at hundreds of places. So, Dr. Omar, it is up to you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Brother Mumtaz. Assalamu alaikum. Salam to all who are joining us today. It had been a while. I really missed the in-person meetings because they had some perks associated with them. but also we have advantages of having online meetings. If I may ask you just to improve the bandwidth, if you don't mind turning the video not off, but just block the video and mute, just to make the bandwidth as accessible to all as possible. And then when we, inshallah, have the question answer session, then we'll go back and have everyone join us visually and audio wise. So first of all, can you hear me well? The sound is okay, Brother Mumtaz? Yes? Okay, good. First of all, I'd like to emphasize that sometimes when we have these meetings, there could be other questions of interest amongst us. But I would encourage all of us to stay focused on the topic today, rather than deviate to other things, because the Quran is vast, extremely vast, and it's good to give this very important subject its justice as much as we could or we can in this hour to 2 hours, hopefully. So when we translate, when we come across words in the Mus'haf, words, as we said repeatedly, words have meaning, profound meanings. I mean, after all, Allah talked to us using words. He did not use sign language. Okay, so it's a sign of maturity of the human race to communicate with words. In my opinion, this is one of the most the best signs, the most important signs of advanced maturity is to communicate with words. Okay, because words involve or combine or encapsulate concepts. So the focus today is on the okay, so just to continue this brief introduction, is that words have meaning and have implications, and they have meanings. Just to summarize what we said in previous meetings, the meanings, a word by itself does not mean much, but it has to be understood in a context. It has to be understood in a context, in a style, in a theme, in a broader theme, broader context. So if we start looking at the verse, at the word ayah, which is the subject of today's discussion, some people might say right from the beginning, why are we complicating things? And I've heard this repeatedly whenever I try to discuss some aspects in the Mus'haf. Well, one doesn't need to open the Mus'haf. One doesn't need to become a Muslim. Allah didn't force anyone to do any of this. Okay, but for those who have Iman in the revelation, including us, they look at the revelation as a book of Hidayah, as a material, as content, which is supposed to give us Hidayah. And the Hidayah is relative, and expansive and scalable. One can have little Hidayah, one would desire more Hidayah, one would like beyond that, and more and more and more. So this scale depends on the person. Every person has his own mindset and is free to look for Hidayah or not. Okay, now some aspects of Hidayah might not be relevant to some people. That's fine. Okay, we're not forcing people to look at all aspects of Hidayah. Some are relevant. Some want much more than what we're talking about. Okay, so it's all relative. So when we look at the word ayah is typically translated as verse. And frankly, I really don't know the root of the word verse. I don't know. I'm not an English expert. Okay. But is this translation fair? That's the first thing that I want to focus on. Okay, I want to be as honest as possible in this discussion. Now, and then I will get to the implication. First of all, I want to see if this translation is fair, and second, or perhaps I should say, do we understand what the word ayah means? And second, I like to focus on the implications. Extremely important implications to understand key verses, key verses in the Mus'haf, key segments, okay, key bayans. I like to call them bayan, what is typically referred to as a verse. I like to call it a bayan, okay? Key bayans that had been misunderstood because our understanding of the word ayah, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, was not accurate. Okay, so these key verses, these key bayans, we cannot get to them, impossible to get to them if we really don't understand what ayah means. So if I take a look at just I put on, I'm flashing it in front of you, I'm putting on my iPhone, I put on this impressive search engine, I put ayah, and I have 300 I put just the word ayah, and it occurs 382 times in the Mus'haf, 382 times in a total of 353 verses, total of 300. So it occurs heavily, it occurs a lot in the Mus'haf. And I will go through some and do the translation in a very minimal way, very, very minimal way. لا تشتروا بآياتي ثمنا قليلا. كانوا يكفرون بآيات الله. They used to make kufur in آيات الله. ويريكم آياته. I'm not going to mention every verse. There's so many. I'm going to go over some rather quickly. يريكم آياته. He will let you visualize, see, or sense his ayat. I'm going to leave it untranslated. وَلَقَدْ أَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ آيَاتٍ بَيِّنَاتٍ. This is very interesting. We have revealed to you a clear ayat, clear ayat. Another very important verse which we'll go to come to later, مَا نَنْسَخُ مِنْ آيَةٍ أَوْ نُنْسِهَا. What we nansakh, what we document, validate, confirm, write, scribe an ayah, or make it forgotten. I'm going to come. Notice that I'm not translating ayah. I'm just leaving it as it is. Okay. قد بينا الآيات. We have made the ayat clear in another verse. Okay. بين السماء والأرض لآيات. Between the السماء والأرض لآيات لقوم يعقلون. An ayat for people who can synthesize concepts together. يعقلون, who can synthesize. Okay. Now here is a very important one, and this is what البقرة 61. وإذ قلتم يا موسى لن نصبر على طعام واحد. I will read some of it and I will translate just pertinent. فَادْعُ لَنَا رَبُّكَ. And وَإِذْ قُلْتُمْ, and if you declare to Musa, لَن نَصْبِرَ عَلَى طَعَامٍ وَاحِدٍ, we will not have patience with, again, this is a quick minimalist translation. We will not have patience with one type of food. So call your Lord, فَادْعُ لَنَا رَبُّكَ يَخْرِجْ لَنَا, so that he can bring out from the earth all kind of baqal, qitha'uha wa fawmiha wa adasiha, all kind of vegetation that we can eat. He declared, Musa declared, أَتَسْتَبْدِلُونَ الَّذِي هُوَ أَدْنَى بِالَّذِي هُوَ خَيْرٌ. Do you want to substitute what is of lower quality for what is better or higher quality? أَهْبِطُوا مَصْرٍ. go to Egypt, go to, not descend, go to Egypt, فَإِنَّ لَكُمْ مَا سَأَلْتُمْ, there you will find whatever you asked for. وَضُرِبَتْ عَلَيْهُمُ الذِّلَّ وَالْمَسْكَنَةِ, and they've been put in a situation of misery and depravity. وَبَاءُوا بِغَضَبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ, and then they received Allah's wrath. ذلك بأنهم كانوا يكفرون بآيات الله. That's because they used to make kufr in آيات الله. Notice, this is one verse, one, not verses. All of this is one verse. So the ayat here is designate what was revealed in this very verse. Okay. I will not spend too much time dwelling on this, but let me take a few other example. In Baqarah 259, look at your donkey and we will make you an ayah for people. We will make you an ayah for people. Now, another interesting thing, another very interesting aspect, and I want to focus on this and I will come to it later, but it's an important observation to make at this time. Let's say in Al Imran number 4, Surah 3 verse 4, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ, those who have made kufr in Allah's ayat. Notice, those who have made kufr in Allah's ayat. Okay. وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ, who makes kufr in Allah's ayat. Okay. Now, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ and Al Imran 21, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَكْفُرُونَ بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ, those who make kufr again in ayat Allah. Okay. And in 41, Rabbi aj'al li ayah, oh my Lord, make an ayah for me. And then the continuation, your ayah is that you do not talk to people, so on and so forth. Okay. Another interesting observation, notice the following. نَتْلُوهُ عَلَيْكَ مِنَ الْآيَاتِ. We نَتْلُو عَلَيْكَ آيَاتِ. Interesting. So let me pause here. 3 conclusions so far. Okay, the first is that ayah is referring to a sign. Okay, is referring to a sign that Allah is using to validate the revelation, is to validate the nubuwwah of Muhammad, to validate the risala of Muhammad, is to validate the book, ayah. Okay. Look at, for instance, and nothing becomes clearer to summarize this first conclusion than 45, which is Al-Jathiyah, 45, 1 to 6, verse 1 to 6. And I will read 1 to 6, all of them, because of the importance of the beginning of this verse, of this surah. Hamim. تنزيل الكتاب من الله العزيز الحكيم. Hamim, I don't know what it means. تنزيل الكتاب, the revelation of the book from Allah. Al-Aziz al-Hakim. Let's just leave Al-Aziz al-Hakim now. Next, إن في السماوات والأرض لآيات للمؤمنين. إن, stress that in the samawat, let's say the heavens for now, and the ard, irrespective, okay? لآيات, in these places, samawat wal ard, there are ayat للمؤمنين. Notice, للمؤمنين, for those who have faith. Iman. وفي خلقكم وما يبث من دابة آيات لقوم يوقنون. And in your creation, and what he expands, something of this meaning from a domesticated animal, or let's say just an animal that walks on earth. Ayat, sign, لقوم يوقنون. I'm going to leave يوقنون untranslated. Third, واختلاف الليل والنهار, and the changes in the night and the day. وما أنزل الله من السماء, and what Allah has brought down in rizq. Okay, my understanding is rizq is the rain. Okay, فأحيا به الأرض, and he revived the earth after it was dead. And the continuation of still in this verse, وتصريف الرياح, and the movement of winds, آيات لقوم يعقلون. All of those physical phenomena, آيات لقوم يعقلون. آيات for those who synthesize all this information to come up with certain conclusions. Notice the last two verses out of this, the sixth one, تلك آيات الله, تلك آيات الله, تلك آيات الله فنتلوها عليك نتلوها عليك بالحق. نطفة. One more time. تلك آيات الله نتلوها عليك بالحق. Those, not these. Do you see the difference? Those, not these. تلك, not هذه. Okay. هذه means in front of me, these. Okay. These books that I have around me, those books that are far away from me. Okay. تلك هذه. Okay. So تلك آيات الكتاب, those were the ayat. تلك آيات الله. Those are the ayat of Allah. نتلوها عليك بالحق. Interesting. نتلوها عليك بالحق, فبأي حديث بعد الله وآياته يؤمنون. نتلوها. Okay. نتلوها عليك. Allah is making natlu of the ayat. Okay. So the first thing that comes to one's mind is that, wait a minute, what was written, what I just said in front of all of you, verse 1 to 5 of Al-Jathiyah, are ayat. No, they're not ayat. Interesting. Allah is making talawa of the ayat. Look, Allah continues, فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثٍ بَعْضَ اللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. And which hadith بعد, after Allah and his ayatihi yu'minun. Okay, so what do we take out of this? What do we take from this? Is that the first six that I just narrated, they're not ayat. Okay, they're part of the Quran, they're verses. Okay, the ayah. I'm sorry. Okay, so there is hadith. Okay, there is hadith that we are there's a hadith that Allah wants us to believe in, but he didn't ask us to believe in the ayat. Isn't that amazing? That Allah is asking us to believe in the hadith, but he didn't ask us to believe in the ayat. Okay, so now in this context, in this very interesting part of today's discussion, Allah talks about those who make kufur in the ayat. Notice, those who make kufur in the ayat. He talks in a negative way about those who make kufur in the ayat. But, and I stand to be corrected, I never found Allah declaring in the Mus'haf that he is asking us to make Iman in the ayat. Isn't that interesting? It's an interesting observation. He wants us to make Iman in the hadith, which is the book, right? فَأَيَّ حَدِيثٍ بَعْدَ اللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ يُؤْمِنُونَ, right? You make Iman in the hadith, in the book. But he didn't ask to make Iman in the ayat. However, I can have Iman in the ayat, but he didn't ask me to make Iman in the ayat. I think that the difference is critical and very, very important. Okay, in summary, al-Iman bil-Hadith, not in the ayat. Okay, if we look at Al-Kahf, Surah Al-Kahf, I did not write the verse number, but Allah says, and again, I'm focusing on what is of importance to this discussion today, not everything. Allah says, فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ عَلَى آثَارِهِمْ. Let's not translate this phrase. The continuation, إِن لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ أَسَفًا. If they did not have Iman in this hadith, okay? In this hadith, right? You look carefully, another database, you put Ayah, Ayah, and you put Ayah and Amana, okay? Iman. And look what comes up. This is very, very also instructive. Ayah and Iman. يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. I can go on and on and on. Not a single one where Allah says, make Iman in my ayat. I hope you find this observation important, okay? Now, he talks negatively of those who make kufr in the ayat. Now, let me get to the difference. Why in previous talks, in previous discussion, I explained that kufr is not the opposite of Iman, okay? And this discussion buttresses that thought that I shared with you. Kufr is to cover the truth. You see something, has nothing to do with Iman, okay? Now, why Allah didn't ask us to make, in my opinion, why Allah didn't, and this is just a minor deviation, and then we'll go back to the subject. Why Allah didn't ask us to make Iman in the ayat? Look, not al-kitab, al-ayat, okay? Because not everyone has the capability to discover the ayat. Not everyone. And each one of us has a different capacity, different mental capacity. Allah la yukallifu nafsan illa wus'aha. You cannot come to someone who has a limited mental capacity, not because he or she are defective inherently, because they did not go to good schooling, for instance, and expect him to understand how the solar system works. Of course, okay? So do you see the difference? But if one sees the ayat, by definition, if one yakfur, okay, if one makes kufr, by definition, that person is concealing a truth. Okay, that's why Allah cannot ask us to make Iman, and never did in the Mus'haf, in ayat. Okay, so, all right, so, and again, ayat is not the opposite, Iman is not the opposite of kufr. Now, the next point I want to talk about is that what are, so in summarizing this segment so far, ayah means a sign. The ayah means sign. The ayah, as I said in Surah Al-Jathiyah, as I explained when I read Surah Al-Jathiyah, Hamim, Tanzil, Kitab, all of this, all of the six in the first, not the first, the 4 verses that preceded Tilka Ayatillah, Allah was talking about physical signs. Look elsewhere in the Quran. Ayat refers to material thing, tangible, something you measure, whatever you measure with an instrument, or you measure with your hands, or with your smell, or with your eye. This is very, very clear to me that that's the meaning of ayah. All right. Now, what are the implications? The implications are significant, okay? When Allah says, just to give a counter, to give an example of another example that shows that this conclusion makes sense, when Allah says, لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى, do not approach the salah, let's leave it at that, while you are in a state of sukr. I don't think that sukr is intoxication. It could be sedation, okay? Possibly. Nevertheless, there's no sign in that. There's no sign as far as I'm concerned. I don't see any sign. This is a command, and a hikmah, hukum, broadly is different from a sign. When Allah says, تعالوا أتلوا ما حرم ربكم عليكم, come, let me express to you what Allah has made haram on you. Where is the sign in this? There's no sign. Okay. When Allah says, bring an ayah, when he challenged, okay, when he put forward this challenge or this test, let's put it as a test, he asked to reproduce an ayah. He didn't ask to reproduce a verse. كتب عليكم النوم. I would say كتب على النوم كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم. Wow, it sounds like Mus'haf, like a verse from the Mus'haf, right? But where is the sign in it? Where is the physical manifestation of the creation in it? Nowhere. It's just a command. Now, the other two verses, and let me come to them directly, is the naskh. Of course, we talked about naskh, and we demonstrated that naskh has nothing to do with abrogation at all. Okay, naskh has to do with documenting, scribing, something of that sort. Okay, affirming, writing down. So when Allah says "Ma nansakhu min ayah," if we have the understanding that ayah means a sign, then of course Allah is not referring to the verses of the Mus'haf. See, this is a huge implication. So it really renders the blasphemous, the controversial, the bizarre of nasikh al-mansukh and abrogation, intra-Mus'haf abrogation or inter-Mus'haf abrogation and so forth, completely null and void. Okay, because Allah is definitely talking in this ma nansakhu min ayah, what we scribe down, what we document an ayah, okay, or we make people forget it, we will replace it with a one which is better than it. The other important implication is the verse which Mumtaz had been also intrigued by considerably, and let me look it up. Mutashabih, okay? Mutashabih. Brother Mumtaz, do you remember the verse? Mutashabihat.
It is 3.7, and here ayat muhkamat are also ayat, and mutashabihat are also ayat.
Yes, and which verse was it?
3.7, Al-Imran 7 verse.
Okay, Al-Imran 7. So let's go, okay, because this is very critical in understanding this. Okay. So let's now focus on this verse, because we had come across this repeatedly in previous discussions. Allah says, هو الذي أنزل عليك الكتاب. Okay. منه آيات محكمات. Let's translate phrase by phrase. هو الذي أنزل عليك الكتاب. He who has reveals on you the book. Okay. منه آيات محكمات. Part of it, آيات محكمات. هن الكتاب. They are, shall we say, the mother of the book. هم الكتاب, the mother of the book. وأخرى متشابهات, and others.
Muhkamat means instruction, guidance, law, and prescription, proscription.
Let's leave it like this, and we'll come to that, because I'm focusing on ayat, and then we come to محكمات. هن الكتاب وأخرى متشابهات, and not the remaining, but others, right? Others are متشابهات, because these are the two words here. محكمات, متشابهات. Now, let's continue. فأما الذين في قلوبهم زيغ, those who have in their heart زيغ. The way I translate زيغ is that they cannot, you know, they're always fluctuating. Okay. فيتبعون ما تشابه منه ابتغاء الفتنة. They follow what had been متشابه from it, i.e. the ayat, the mutashabihat, right? ما تشابه منه refers to المتشابهات. وابتغاء تأويله, and they were interested in deciphering these parts of the kitab. تأويله. تأويل, يؤول, means to put an explanation or a conclusion, or what will that thing amount to or lead to. وما يعلم تأويله إلا الله, and only Allah understands, not knows, understand its ta'wil. Only Allah knows what it will lead to, these mutashabihat. والراسخون في العلم, and those who are راسخون. راسخون is firm, deeply rooted in understanding. Okay, they say we have made belief in it, all from our Lord. Okay, and the continuation. So if we want to understand this verse, okay, this verse, if we don't agree on what ayah means, we cannot go any further. Clearly, right? Clearly we cannot. Okay, so it's useless to explain what mutashabih means. It's useless to explain what mutashabih, to get into mutashabih and to muhkam, if we don't understand what ayah. Now, based on the previous part of this discussion today, if, and everyone has the right to believe in whatever they want, but if ayah only refers to a sign, a physical manifestations of Allah's creation, okay, then Allah is not talking about verses. Sorry, then Allah is not talking about verses in this verse. He is not. Okay, so the muhkam and the mutashabih, okay, have to do with the sign, not with the verse, right? So there are signs. I look at it mutashabih. I don't want to complicate it too much. Mutashabih means there are similarities between two things. Shabah, mutashabih, okay? Muhkam, there are no similarities with other things. Something is muhkam, others don't have similarity to this, okay? This is my understanding. So this puts this controversy, puts an end, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, to this controversy, okay? Because most, if not all, and I stand by what I'm saying here, it's recorded, I think, most, if not all, translations of this verse and or interpretation assumed that ayah means verse. And that's the biggest problem understanding this very important verse, because If ayah means verse, one can say, wait a minute, what's the point if Allah is the only one who knows how to understand all these verses? وَمَا يَعْلَمْ تَأْوِيلَهُ. يَعْلَمْ, look, يَعْلَمْ refers to what? Al-Kitab. يَعْلَمْ, singular, refers to Al-Kitab. So Allah is the only one who understands, who has the understanding to explain the book. But this is it's redundant. I mean, Allah brought the book. Allah doesn't understand the verses of the book. It doesn't click. You know, someone brought a book. Allah doesn't understand the verses, the meaning of the verses. No. Allah is talking about ayat, signs. Signs, the conclusion of which, ta'wil al-ayat, what they will lead to, is the only one. Allah is the only one, who understands where they will lead to. And notice, not وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ. الرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ is not added to Allah. Absolutely. الرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ يَقُولُونَ. They say, آمَنَّا بِهِ. So grammatically, it doesn't work meaningfully in any way you look at it. وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ, it's a different phrase. يَقُولُونَ آمَنَّا. وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ, those who are deeply rooted in understanding and science, they declare, we have believed in it. We have believed bihi, not bil ayat. We have believed in the book. Bihi, singular. The pronoun refers to al-kitab. هو الذي أنزل عليك الكتاب. That's the beginning of the verse. Okay, so I hope this is useful. I think there are some very interesting concepts here. I think, in my opinion, have significant implications. And I think I hope what I said today is consistent. This is very important. Is consistent with what we've been saying for some time. Okay, Brother Mumtaz, I will stop right here so that we can have, again, if possible, the discussion is focused on what the subject of today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Omar. It was a great discussion and deep insight into the word ayah. So there are now a lot of questions. So Dr. Shahrur has categorized verses into three categories: the muhkamat, mutashabihat, and tafsil-e-kitab, based upon Surah Yunus, verse 37. So in that context, we will raise the question. And second is that previously, because muhkamat, there are instructions, guidance, and information from God. So any information from Allah, I believe that is also the ayat, the sign, and mutashabihat, that is regarding to the belief in Allah, in Qiyamah, in afterlife, life after death, and Malaika, and those things. They are all in mutashabihat, in my opinion. So just if you can explain that, that the muhkamat are also the ayat, and tafsil-e-kitab are simply verses. So if you have any word to say. And then Dr. Ijaz Rasool has raised the hand. So let the other people come up with questions and you can reply me later. Dr. Ijaz, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Umar. Bhai, you have really put me into higher thinking mode. Now, going back to verse 7, I have got your points from previous verses where you have referred that ayatun are more related to the signs in the outer world and concrete.
Brother, can you speak louder or closer to the mic, please, if you don't mind?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Better.
Very
Little.
Wait a minute, let me check it. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
Okay, I've tested it because sometimes the location of my mic is not great. Anyway, I got your point, and really it has definitely made me think in a bit higher mode. Ayatun, when we say ayatun muhkamatun, so over here in this verse of Surah Al-Imran, if we say this refers to with the outer signs, the concrete signs, the solid signs like samawat wal ard and the other physical signs, then to me, I think I agree with you on that, that ayatun, if we say that these refer to that, and then mutashabihat, of course, are related to similes, metaphors, or whatever we can call it. And then your line of argument that over here, Quran has said, وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ يَقُولُونَ أَمَّا آمَنَّا بِهِ, that is singular al-kitab. To me, that makes sense. I agree with you on this. However, the difficulty which we have is that obviously these have been translated and of course the meanings have been written in that context. Somehow that all those clauses which refer to laws or instructions or Allah's commands, as you said, refer to some of the verses like don't marry your mothers or those kind of things are very established commands. Then your understanding is that we cannot call them as ayat. Am I right?
Correct.
Because there is no ayat over there. This is a straightforward command and you follow it and then you see the results. And of course, there are issues with that. Then we have to find it out ourselves, because the reading of the Quran, it's not prescriptive in my view. It is more to use our synthesis, our ability of akal, and then come up with the solutions ourselves. It does not lay out everything for us, because then mind will not develop if everything is written down and we are to just follow it blindly or even with a little use of akal. And Rasikhun al-ilm, does it mean that those whose knowledge, whose ilm has to comprehend all these aspects? And is it Rasikhun over here, will it be in a plural sense? I don't think it is singular. You know, what I mean is it has to be a people coming together and trying to sort it out.
Plural. Rasikhun is plural.
Oh, no, that's fine. So I go with you, but obviously the point you have put forward, I never looked at it. So I'll have to put some more thought into it. And if there are any questions, I'll come back. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Jad. You know, see, there are verses in the Mus'haf that come across as if ayah means verse. And I want to be frank with you. This is very interesting. I will mention those to you. In 299, Al-Baqarah 99, وَلْقَدْ أَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ آيَاتٍ بَيِّنَاتٍ وَمَا يَكْفُرُ بِهَا إِلَّا الْفَاسِقُونَ. Okay, and we have revealed to you ayatin bayinat, clear or overt. Okay, overt ayat. وَمَا يَكْفُرُ بِهَا إِلَّا الْفَاسِقُونَ. There's one. In Al-Baqarah 252. تِلْكَ آيَاتُ اللَّهِ نَتْلُوهَا عَلَيْكَ بِالْحَقِّ وَإِنَّكَ لَمِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. تِلْكَ, those are the verses of, the ayat Allah. Natluha alayka. You see, Allah is not telling the writing is not the ayah. The writing is not the ayah. Allah is referring to the signs. نتلوها is different from hadith. فبأي حديث. Tala is different from hadith. Okay, so this is really the precision that, in my opinion, if someone were to ask me, why do you believe in Allah? This is the precision that makes me believe in Allah. Of course, the ayat, okay? And it's not, it doesn't stop there. Look, it doesn't stop there. There's ayatullah, the ayat Allah, okay? There is ayatuna, our ayat. There is ayatul Rahman in 1958, okay? In 2272, ayatuna, in 1958, ayat al-Rahman. And in 3108, ayatullah. So they're not the same. The signs are not the same, okay? The signs are not the same. Anyways, I think, brother,
there is one thing which came to my mind actually earlier. I forgot in my initial question. It has been, irritatingly bothered me for a fairly long time that people, despite living in a universe where there is so much concrete evidence around it that there is some creator with a grand design behind it, because a lot of Western thinkers have said, and scientists and neurologists, they have said that this world or this universe is perfect for a being like us, human beings. But still they don't see beyond that. And the explanation which you have given appeals to me. Of course, I'll be putting in more effort and looking into it. That ayatullah, which Quran is referring to the outer world, are the ones which should then convince us that this hadith, this Bahi, this one is the one on which you have to have Iman. Because it doesn't make any difference that those ayatullah, which are spread all around us in the universe, even if you accept them that these are from Ar-Rahman or these are from Allah, it will still not do the job which you can only get by accepting or having Iman in the book of Allah, because that is where the change is coming.
Sure.
Do you see what I'm saying? Because this thing, in fact, answers that question, that why people do not come to the Quran despite seeing the signs around everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So should we say ayatullah in themselves are becoming signs to come to the Quran, and then the Quran itself will reveal itself to us that what it means for our life. Does it make sense to you?
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, it is.
So obviously there is a lot to think through it, and I'll definitely look into it. And if there are any further queries, I'll come back to you.
Iqbal Janjua, please come forward.
Thank you, sir. Sir, can you listen to me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Sir, it was great to listen to you, sir. You told a lot about having Iman on Hadith and not to have Iman on Ayah. Sir, I would like to state two verses. One is verse number 15, Surah number 32. Innama yominu bi ayatina allazina idha zukiru biha khurru sajada. And second is verse number 69, Surah number 43. Allazina amanu bi ayatina wa kanu muslimin. Here it is clearly stated to have Iman on ayat. Sir, how would you like to define it?
Absolutely. Sure. Thank you. Brother, one more time. Which one? The first one was 15?
1532.
Verse number 15, Surah number 32.
32:15.
32.
Yeah, 32:15. Let me just 32:15.
Okay.
Okay, I think
Sir.
yeah. So the two make your point Okay, excellent, brother. Very, very, thank you so much for bringing this. Notice in these two verses, there's no command to make Iman in the ayat. That's precisely what I was referring to. You see, I, and all of us, I assume, of course, positively, that we have Iman in ayatullah. Do you see? There's a difference. Allah didn't, there's no reference in the Mus'haf that Allah is asking us to make Iman in his ayat. And that is exactly my point. And there are more than these two, by the way, verses where Allah is talking about people who said, we have Iman in your ayat. You see?
So it means ayat are just the facts in front of you.
Exactly. Are signs, some of them I may not see. Some of them I may not see in my capacity. Others may see. Okay, that's why Allah never, someone can be blind, born blind, right? He or she doesn't see anything. Someone can be completely deaf and dumb. So what you said, Brother Iqbal, is precisely to my point, is that Allah never commanded us to make Iman in his ayat. But he said what? Make Iman in the book.
It's over. Iqbal, do you have any further question or just go ahead to Dr. Ehsan?
Sir, there are 3 verses. It is chance that these 3 are first of the Surah number 10, 12, 13. Alif Lam Mim, Tilka Ayatul Kitabul Mubin, Tilka Ayatul Kitabul Mubin, Tilka Ayatul Kitab. So these all are not referring to the verses Ayatul Kitab.
No, not based on the understanding that I shared some of. No, Allah is referring to he could have said hadihi. Allah elsewhere in the Mus'haf he says hadihi. Hadihi means these. Tilka is not these. And this is clear difference between tilka and I don't see any reason to believe that Allah is referring to these verses. So yeah, tilka ayat tilka ayatullah natluha alayka bil haqq wa idha tutla alayhim ayatina bayyinatin. I can go on. Idha tutla alayhim ayat ar-rahman. Okay, when tutla, tilawa is not the written document, whether I say it verbally or I write it. Okay, it is not. You see, this is important because it brings us to, I didn't have time to talk about it. Tala, tala, tutla. I am going to what does Allah mean say when he said وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ? Tutla. There's unzila, there's unzila, there is tlu, there is uhaddith, there is aqra, there is rattil. 5, I'm here listing 5 different words. Rattala, tala, haddatha, qara'a, anzala. They're not the same. They're absolutely not the same. Anzala alayka al-kitaba. Okay? Natlu alayka al-kitaba is not anzala alayka al-kitaba. They're not the same. I'm sorry. They're not the same. Okay? I can, here's a thought that came to my mind. Thanks to Brother Iqbal for bringing, make us think deeper. I will atlu alayka the book of physics. Or I would unzil alayka the book of physics. Or I would aqra alayka the book of physics. or I would borrow the English word, read on you the book of physics. Okay, they're different. They're different implications. They're different implications, absolutely. You know, and when I atlu alayka, the book of physics, my understanding based on the discussion we had today, that I am showing you the concepts in the book of physics, pointing you out to these concepts in this physics book, pointing you out. I'm not reading verbatim the book of physics, which you may understand or not understand. I can, read a book of chemistry. H plus H, two H's plus O equals O, equals water. What, you can go on and on. So I think Allah is really, really teaching us precision in a way that please, I'm joking, don't tell me the Arabs of those days understood. No, he's teaching humanity to be precise, because, again, the more precise we are, the more we discover things. Anyways, I think other brothers.
Dr. Ehsan, please go ahead. Dr. Ehsan, unmute yourself.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saab.
Wa
Assalamu
alaikum salam, brother
warahmatullahi wabarakatuhu. Today is actually my day, I would say. Thank you very much. I have been doing research on this very topic for a long time. And I have been talking about this to Mr. Mumtaz and my group fellows on similar ideas. And for the first time, I heard this deeper, profound understanding of the Ayah, which actually I missed from my group fellows. I agree totally. I cannot agree more with you, because this is something which has been misread, misunderstood by our mufassirin and translators, so and so. And there is so much collection of them that it is very difficult to raise even your voice. My expertise, my specialization is on the Holy Quran, and I have worked on muqatta'at, on these different letters. I totally agree with you, and I also have answer to the question that was raised by Mr. Iqbal, that actually the ayahs are mentioned in the Holy Quran about verses and about signs, both, and they make a difference at areas where Dr. Saab has chosen, and you have chosen the places where there are signs, and there are mainly for signs. And the verse that you mentioned about muhkamat and mutashabihat also exactly talks about the signs, the physical signs of nature. And the muhkamat are those signs, for example, the day and night, they are very clear. But there are certain shades which are not so clear. And for them, of course, like death and life, why it comes, when it comes, how it comes, and very difficult to explain. So there are certain areas which are difficult to explain, and only Allah knows the motive behind those signs. On the other hand, there are very clear signs which can be read by Rasikhun al-Ilm, like Newton was able to read the laws of nature, and the scientists are able to read, and even common men are able to read certain signs which are very, very clear. For example, they can see dark clouds and they can see the rain there. So very interestingly, I agree. And I would like that I have your email. I would like to send my article to you on that the topic is clear, semantics of Al-Kitab. Just let me finish, please. Semantics of Al-Kitab and Ayah in the Quran. That is my topic. So inshallah, I'll be very glad to interact with Dr. Saab. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Dr. Ehsan. and I appreciate it. You will get the email and phone number you already have of Dr. Ramahi. So great.
Just want to say
Thank you.
just a quick comment. Thank you so much, Brother Hassan. Thank you so much for your kind words. I would love to correspond. Absolutely. My email is very simple. First initial, last name @gmail, oramahi@gmail.com. oramahi@gmail.com. Very simple.
Thank you. Thank you.
So yes, Harun, if you have any question.
Thank you. So I just want to
Yeah.
clarify.
So, ballpen Madrawla?
So when you say,
Yeah, Harun, please go ahead.
yeah, so when you say ayat, so okay, thank you. So when you say, when you say that Allah brings down rizq, so He brings water, and then from dead land there's growth. The ayat is not the verse which says it, but rather the actual tangible sign. Is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so so my understanding, or at least what I thought, and I'm not sure it was correct, was that there's obviously verses which point to these sort of physical signs, and although some of them might seem clear, like the movement from night to day, or from the movement from dead dusty land to a rainforest or oasis, the Quran's pointing to transformations in the external world that we wouldn't have known about had we not seen them occur. So you see a desert, and there's no possible way that you would know that could be a rainforest by any stretch of the imagination until you saw rain fall on it, and then it became such a thing. And the point is not that that's great, there's a transformation there, but rather with the transformation comes an emergent law. So there's a new idea formed from the transformation. And then there's verses that come along like 45:22 where it points to it's not a commandment, but rather like an abstract law. So it's not really tangible anywhere, but it just states objectively that every human being is responsible. Every human being will get the just deserts of what they do, right or wrong, or to that effect. So my what I was wondering is that when it says ayat, is it pointing to the physical manifestations of those things that are transforming in front of us, from which we can infer emergent laws? So from those things that are changing in front of us, we can infer a will or a movement that is not ours, and it's not chance, but it's rather direct, some sort of force directing things. Would you agree with that, or what are your thoughts about that?
Brother Harun, thank you so much. This is perfect. What you said is very complimentary to what I was saying. I did not go beyond that because we were trying to explore what the meaning of the word ayah, but you hit it right on the money. Why should Allah ask us to wonder about these physical manifestations? Just because, wow, it's marvelous. I look at you raised a really, really very powerful point. I look at the stars and I say, oh, it's so beautiful. God must have been, elegant and an artist and all of that. You're right. There must be something deep, because all of these laws that hold all of these things together, I'm talking about gravity, but that in such a way that there's not an iota of deviation. There's not an iota of deviation. Repeatedly, we see the same thing. The more we incorporate these laws into our products, the more reliable they become. How many aircraft crashed last year compared to 20 years ago? What's the difference? We're approaching Al-Alim. We're incorporating more and more laws into it. Nowadays, you heard about the tornado or in Florida. Of course, I'm not trying to minimize the loss of life. Any loss of life is big, but But I'm sorry to use the word but, 28 people died compared to the floods in Pakistan. You know why? Because there's more incorporation of Allah's, you know, laws in the society and the ecosystem of Florida than incorporating Allah's laws into the villages in Pakistan. Of course, please understand me. I'm not, you know, belittling any death. You know, any death is big, but you're absolutely right, and I thank you for raising that point. I fully agree with you.
So then my next question would be then that if Allah has given us two different types of you know of structuring the message, so what's explicit and what is inferred or emergent, then is it pointing to different facets of our own ability to understand these things? So is it pointing to different facets of our own perception? So and the only place I've ever read anything like that is really in Iqbal's reconstruction of religious thought, where he talks about mechanistic or almost reductionist thinking and then intuitive reasoning. So is it really that it's you know that the explicit laws, the abstract laws that emerge, that are stated quite explicitly in the Quran are very rational, but then to be able to infer signs in the external world, we need something which comes more from the heart rather than from the mind. I don't know if that's correct or not, but I just want to know what you think.
I cannot comment on the latter part of what you said. It's a thought, you know, we can discuss that. But going to the first part of your second question, Allah says, "Inna Allah la yukallifu nafsan illa wus'aha." You know, Allah does not ask a person to do beyond his or her capacity. Now, this had been understood classically as, oh, I am sick, I cannot pray, then you can sit and pray while you're sitting. I mean, that's the reductionist way to look at this profound verse. No, my capacity, my mental capacity, I can, you know, my son, who's way younger than me, he knows quantum mechanics, and my brain, I'm a professor of electrical engineering, but I cannot comprehend. You know, he talks to me about binding in proteins, and my brain cannot take it. Okay, so everybody has, and if you look at the binding in proteins and protein structures, you say, wow, there cannot be a player behind this. There's a design, an incredible designer behind this. Okay, now let's go to the other parts. What you said, Allah never asked us to make Iman in ayat. And that goes hand in hand with our limited capacity. Absolutely. But you know what? I don't like to look at it as limited capacity. Of course, I said I, not Allah. Allah knows that we have a certain capacity. Look, capacity is different from intellectual level, okay? Some designers, and I dealt with some, they see the difference between colors that I would dismiss as the same. And guess what? And they make products that sell because they saw something that I didn't see at all. Okay. I do research in microwaves. I discover things that if I were to share them with anyone in this group, they might say, please don't waste our time, you know. Okay, so Allah never, you know, said, this is the point that I want to stress. Allah never forced us to make Iman in his ayat. And that's not a subtle point. That's a profound point. Okay, but he said, Aminu bil kitab. Thank you, brother. Thank you, Harun.
Thank you.
Sure. Brother Hamid, please.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Dr. Ramahi. It was very, very insightful. I got a lot of ideas, and I was thinking about on this, I believe I talked before. As we understand, every knowledge comes from God. to human. If we understand that, then let's move forward a little bit. Ayat and signs and clues, they are not in the book. They are in our mind. Ayat is not in the book. They are in our mind, in our mental structure. When I was doing residency, one of the surgeons said, if you don't know the anatomy and I open the body, you will not see it. You understand? So what it means, let me give you an example. A murder happens in a house and a lot of people go there and they're walking around and they're not doing anything. One person who's a detective who comes and he sees a cigarette butt and he said, wow, that's a sign for me. You see, cigarette butt was there. Everybody was walking around. Nobody paid attention. Why he paid attention? Because he has a rasikh knowledge. He knows what he's looking for. He has the sign in his mind, not in the book. So Quran, what Allah is trying to tell us, according to every human's cognitive readiness, we give you exactly what your readiness is, what your capability, illa wus'aha. We only give you what you can handle, what you can understand. I cannot give 5th grade mathematics student a calculus teaching because he will not understand. His mental capacity is not there. So the signs are within our mind. That's why Allah don't say, because your mind has different sign than I mind. So we cannot believe in such thing which everybody has their own, according to their own capacity. You're right in that. You can't have a believe in sign because my sign is different than your sign. So according to my understanding, according to my worldview, you could say. So my worldview is every human perception is different. So that's the reason, and that's the reason God is not asking us. He says, believe in the book, but the signs are different, that every human will have look at it differently according to their mental capacity, number one. Number two, you mentioned the ayat where the nasikh and mansukh ayat, right? What happened is God is not abrogating or canceling the ayat and putting a new one. Absolutely no, I don't know who thought about it. There's no way. What happened is, in our mental capacity, in our schemas, in our worldview, today I have a worldview. After listening to you, I'm changing my worldview, let's say. So what happened? God is giving me, telling me, abrogate the previous understanding. And now I'm giving you another understanding. So he constantly changed nasikh. He constantly changing in our mind. Remove this part, now take a better one. So this is what he's not saying he's changing in the Quran. He's changing in every human mind, that you were learning this much. Now I'm giving you better understanding. So remove the previous one and take the new one. So this is what he's trying to tell in that nasikh, that he's removing your old false beliefs and giving you a better understanding for future. So this is how every human is doing it. It's not that it's specific for somebody. So these are the signs. Signs are never in the book. Signs are in our mind. As I said, the detector who came into the room, he was rasikh in ilm, in that ilm. So he got it. No, a lot of people were walking around there, they didn't know. People are reading Quran not knowing it. People are reading, just reading. One who reads with sign, with his understanding of mental capacity, he will pick up those things. That's why Quran says these ayat are for ulil albab. These ayat for your people of understanding. These ayat who tadabbar, tafakkar, who has ilm, who has akal. All these ayat are not for everybody, because everybody reading Quran, but they're not picking up, because they're not seeing that cigarette butt, which was very specific for the murderer who murdered it. He picked it up. So ayat in our mind, that's the what our when I was doing residency, when he said that, if you don't know in your mind, you cannot see it. So the only people who can see it, who has it, the capacity of mind. So I think it's very well said what you did today, and I think it confirms a lot of things what I had in my mind.
Thank you. I want to comment on typically Muslims, you know, and of course people of other millah, to be used the words of the Quran, i.e. Jews and Christians, attribute everything to Allah. Now, please be patient with me. don't accuse me, not to you personally, whoever listens to this, of blasphemy or heresy. Okay, if we look at carefully at the Quran, the Mus'haf rather, Allah never said such thing. He uses the plural sometimes, the plural. Okay, sometimes the singular. And I don't believe in this royal we. There's no such thing as royal we in Allah's, you know. And there's no exaggeration. Allah doesn't exaggerate. You know, the more one advances in anything, the less one exaggerates. So the ultimate is Allah. He doesn't exaggerate. You know, his words are precise to the point. Allah, you know, we attribute knowledge, that everything we know, to him. We should, in my opinion, attribute the only means to acquire knowledge and understanding are according to how he programmed us. There's a difference, you know. وَلَا يَحِطُونَ بِعِلْمِهِ بِشَيْءٍ مِنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ. Not إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ. B. So the way to understand things is through the way Allah programmed us, and that takes us, of course, to another subject, عَلَّمَ بِالْقَلَمِ. You know, we learn through classification. Okay, that's just one point. And another point, another example in the Mus'haf, when Allah said, زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ. From A, B, C, D. Zuyina. It was made appealing to them. He never said, I made it appealing to them. Okay, so there's no blasphemous expressions here, I hope. It's just being very precise on how Allah, because sometimes he said I and sometimes he says we. Okay, if there's we, it means plural. All right. Anyways, and as far as, you know, the capacity, the subject of capacity, that's why, you know, if we pay careful attention to words, and by the way, this is not an exclusive domain of so-called Arab speaking, because I'm learning more and more about Islam and the words that Allah used in this religion through non-Arab speakers. Okay, so that puts it to rest. But the importance of paying attention to words has really huge implications. When Allah says أَفَلَا تَتَفَكَّرُونَ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ أَفَلَا تَفَكَّرُونَ أَفَلَا تَدَبَّرُونَ, I'm not precisely verbatim saying these, but he is talking about different things. He's not talking about the same thing, and all of a sudden the poetic style of Allah kicks in. I mean, you know, the way they teach us when we write papers, they say, oh, you use this word, don't use it again. That's wrong. If it's the right word to use, I'm going to use it again and again and again, unless it is not the right word, okay? So there's a lot of English teaching, which in my opinion is detrimental to how we understand the Quran. But if we go to يعقلون يتفكرون, completely different things. So here in يعقلون, Allah is talking about something which is more advanced than when he used يتفكرون. يتفكرون is to analyze. يعقلون is to synthesize. You know, when someone does a master's degree, we ask him to يتفكر. We ask him to analyze something because that person is not mature enough to synthesize. When a person goes into the PhD program, well, it doesn't have to be a PhD program. One can synthesize outside the PhD program, but I'm talking about the academic world. You ask him to synthesize something, i.e., make new information. Okay, so the task is higher and the impact is higher. So this makes us look at these things or phrases that Allah is referring to in the context of أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ أَفَلَا تَفَكَّرُونَ. Anyways, Brother Mumtaz.
You mentioned in Quran two words, we and I, Allah use. So why these two different words he used?
Absolutely. You know, it was I think 7 years ago that we had a discussion with some family friends visiting us, and my daughter Zainab, she posed a question. She said, Father, why Allah is sometimes using the word we? I mean, it came from an innocent young girl. Why, you know, I think she said, you know, that story, the king without clothes, you know, the emperor without clothes. I think she said something that many people were afraid or shy to say, to ask. And I looked at her and I said, you know, Zainab, this is an interesting question. I really don't have the answer to. It took me 2 years to dig into that to find the answer. The answer was very simple. We means plural. That's all. You know, I is singular, we plural. It means that the royal we, who came up with this royal we, you know, this noble we, you know, even, by the way, even if you apply the noble we, if you hear King Abdullah of Jordan, you know, the palace issues a declaration and it starts with we, that makes a lot of sense. It did not issue, he was not solely involved in this declaration. It means the entire staff, the entire administration, the entire what? It means a group of people, and that's why we is attributed to kings. Okay, fundamentally, okay, meaningfully, that's why it's attributed. So when Allah says we, it means like nazzalna. When he says nazzalna, here's an example. Okay, have revealed. He didn't say I revealed in this particular verse. When he says anzalna, we have revealed. You know, it makes a lot of sense. It means that there were other participants in the process of inzal. Angels, who knows who else? Okay, so you know, so it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. There were other participants in the act. As simple as that. For instance, inna khalaqna. I mean, this is not blasphemous discussion, blasphemous expression, blasphemous talk. Inna khalaqna. Where did I bring inna khalaqna from? from the Mus'haf itself, right? So when he says khalaqna, Allah is referring to a process of quote unquote creation. I put it under quotes because creation is not khalaqna, but it's typically understood, okay? The process of creation in this particular verse, other participants were involved in it, okay?
Like evolution, natural laws.
I don't know, possibly. I mean, of course, I'm not against evolution. I think evolution is a fact, okay? That's another story. But here, the difference, there are sometimes there's plural, by the way. شهد الله أنه لا إله إلا هو الملائكة شهد الله. Okay. Sometimes Allah refers to, whenever he refers to an act that he does, he cannot associate anyone else with that act. He has to repeat the act. Notice, he has to repeat the verb for the other participants. Look, شهد الله أنه لا إله إلا هو الملائكة وأولو العلم. You're very, very critical. شهد الله أنه لا إله إلا هو والملائكة, not شهد الله والملائكة. Okay, you see? So Allah cannot, in other words, we talked about this before. If I say, if I eat something and the virus eats something, me and the virus don't have the same mouth. Okay? So I cannot say I and the virus ate something. Okay. So I think that it really, so that's the answer in a nutshell. Okay. Now our deviation or distancing, I would say, when many Muslims follow the parallel religion, which is solely based on I say solely, I mean it, based on hearsay, they lost track of what Allah is trying to tell us. We lost track. I mean, Allah is trying to tell us something, whether we like it or not. Allah is conveying that message. Whether we want to believe in it or not, that's a different story. That's a different story. Brother Mumtaz?
Yeah. So there is one thing more, just that there is a word muhmat. So some people take it as the verses which are clear in the meaning, verbatim, like whatever the word is, the same meaning. But I believe it means muhmat ahkam, the instructions, the guidance, the law, the limits of the law, and these type of things are muhmat. So if you have any research on this word?
Sure. Brother, I don't agree that ayat means verses. I don't. And I cannot express, I cannot see the demonstration when Allah tells me don't eat the dead flesh. Okay.
Yeah.
How is that a sign? People still argue, is it good or is it bad? Or I can make it good. I can freeze a dead person. I can freeze where is the manifestations of Allah's sign in that? So muhkam, sure, hakama is a root that leads to many words. Ahkam, okay. Why ahkam? Because they tie the society together. I cannot have a hukum for you and the hukum for a rich man and the hukum for a poor man. It's by definition no longer a hukum. It's loose, right? Not hukum yahkum, tie, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where ahkam came from, because the rules, I don't know the root word of the word rule from, but hakama to tighten, right?
Yeah.
To tighten. Okay, so that's why I said it from the very beginning today. If we really are not comfortable with our understanding of the word ayah, and by the way, why would Allah make verses fluid? Why some verses are fluid? In how we understand them. that doesn't make sense. That's a negative thing about Allah. It's a negative thing about Allah that certain verse are similar, and I cannot come to an understanding of what they mean. You know,
it could be what he's saying is some appear to be similar to the previous books. Let's say he's telling a story in the Quran, but that Quranic story has nothing to do with the story of Torah and Bible, but it seems similar. So people have the tendency to go look for those stories and bring it in the Quran. That's what they they did that because it seems similar to those stories.
But Allah didn't say seem similar. You know, Allah says ayatul muhkamat.
No, mutashabihat.
وأخرى متشابهات. Exactly.
See, appear similar. Yeah.
Well,
some are, the others appear similar. So similar to the previous scriptures, but I'm not giving you those stories, what they have concocted. I'm giving you the real version of it. So that could be, he's trying to hint us.
But let's be careful here. Ayat al-Muhkamat, Allah is talking about ayat in the book. He starts with the book. There's no mention of previous scriptures.
No. What I'm saying is, some other ayat in the book are similar, appear similar to previous.
I have some point here, and Tushaba means the discoveries, the things like life after death, like near Qiyamah, about Allah's throne, about Allah's authority, and these type of things, they are real facts, but we will never know. And these are given in similar words. So about the discoveries in science, about takhliq, creation only, when we will discover it, then we will say that, oh, similar words were used, Tushaba words were used in the Quran for these discoveries. And that will be the testimony that Quran cannot be a human written book. But about Malaika, about life after death, about the law of requital, these type of things has been given in words which are similar. I believe that way it explains everything much better. And the other thing is very important. The stories of the Ad, Samud, Nuh, Hazrat Firaun, and those stories, Adam. So those were in different languages, but Allah gave similar word in Arabic. So God translated those languages into Arabic in similar words. So probably they are also in the category of Tushaba, and that is why Dr. Sharur, for example, he categorized this, that Al-Quran, it is mostly Imaniyat, beliefs, and those are in Tushaba. In Sabal Masani, he said points different, but I believe these are the 7 stories which are often repeated. And as Alama said, and the third is Tafsile Kitab. Tafsile Kitab are Akhbar Mankul, for example, what Firaun said, what the other people said. So those are Tafsile Kitab, those are not ayat, those are just verses. So this is my understanding.
Sure. Brother Mumtaz, you know, Allah is referring to وَمَا يَعْلَمْ تَأْوِيلُهُ دَ الْكِتَابِ الْكِتَابِ وَمَا يَعْلَمْ تَأْوِيلُهُ. He's not saying مَا يَعْلَمْ تَأْوِيلُ الْمُتَشَابِهَاتِ. You know, مَا يَعْلَمْ تَأْوِيلُهُ. I mean, it's not really difficult. I noticed when many people try to, and Mufassirin try to understand things, and even adhering to the pronoun and what the pronoun refers to is ignored. I don't know why. I really don't know why. I mean, we're reading it too much into it and we will never get an understanding of it if we're not comfortable with what ayah means. That's number one.
Yeah.
And I, with all due respect to Brother Ahsan, who talked earlier, I really don't think that ayat refers to both verses and signs. I really don't. I think ayat strictly refers to signs. Okay, strictly. Now, as far as Allama, Dr. Shahrur, I think Shahrur had the most profound influence on my life, without a doubt. I mean, he's a genius, and I deeply regret that all the non-Arab speakers are deeply, deeply missing his writings. I mean, the only book that was written, translated, doesn't do any justice to what he came up with. I mean, it doesn't. It's like on a scale of 100, 1 over 100. If you were to read his books in Arabic, it's just a different experience completely.
Oh.
But absolutely, absolutely. And if someone pays me $1 million because of time, I would be happy to translate his books. Especially, I say one book only. I would say the start. Yeah, this
Islam and Humanity. This one.
Yeah, this is out of scale of 1 over 100. I would say this is 1 out of 100 compared to the other ones. Okay, this is a good book, but the best one of his really mind-boggling is the stories of the prophets. It's just mind-boggling. It blows your mind. Okay, now he passed away in November 2019. Okay, it was my hope that I would meet him before he died, to just share with him my concept about, or my understanding of the word ayah, because he struggled with this, Brother Mumtaz. He did. Shahrur had an incredible amount of convincing arguments. This one, unfortunately, it wasn't convincing. Okay, now I hope all of you and others forgive me for saying this, because he's a giant. I mean, Shahrur is one of a kind. Every 500 years, every 500 years we have someone like him. Okay, but this point itself and its relationship to nasikh were things that I strive to have a meeting.
I also disagree with that. Yeah,
I wanted to meet with him, but he passed away. I found out where he was living, but it was too late.
So what you think the ayah is in our mind, not in the Quran?
No, not at all. Not at all. Ayah is a haqq. No, brother. This is serious. Ayah is a haqq.
No. Yeah. Oh, what I'm saying is, if I'm reading a book, that verse or that line or the sentence is in the book. I'm not saying it's not in the book. It's in the book and it's given by God. But when I read some important sentence, it brightens my mind suddenly. It brings a clue into my mind. Wow, that's what I mean. It's in my mind. It's not in the wording.
No. I understand, Brother Hamid. I understand what you said, but I'm saying no, because the ayah is a haqq. It's outside my mind.
Kalimatullah.
Outside the Mus'haf. No, please. This is very important. 2 things. It's outside my perception. Okay. It's independent of me. Okay. Outside my perception, and it is outside the written verse itself. Okay. Now let me show you this. Al-Jathiyah, 45, Surah 45, 1-6. The last verse that I read, Tilka ayatullah, those are the ayat of Allah. Natluha, let's just leave natluha alayka bilhaq. Natluha alayka bilhaq. Okay.
Alayka. Now translate that to you, on me, on him, on her. Right?
No, it's on you.
On you. I understand. On you means whoever is reading.
You know what?
Whoever is reading the Quran, he is saying, I'm reciting, I'm giving it to you with haqq. So basically what I'm saying is, when according to your capacity and cognitive readiness, whatever you can take, he's giving you that sign.
It's sure.
In my cognition.
Nahar, for example.
In my cognition.
For example, solar system, and these things are the realities in the cosmos, and life after death, and these things are also realities, but beyond our thinking. Those are they will come. But Qurbe Kiamat means when this world will end. Scientists have extrapolated these laws, and they have come to the same conclusion as written in the Shamsu Kufirat, all these signs which are for the end of the world. So I believe that it is Haq Ayat, it is outside, and its imagination is our inside. And when these two match, then we can understand what is out there, because those were coded into Arabic, and then their transmission took place, revelation, which we call. So those are the facts outside, but understanding was given inside our mind. So I believe, Dr. Hamid, that way I can very well understand and consistent. If I say only in my mind, then why should I believe it? So
no, the text is in the Quran, but you are perceiving it.
In Quran, they are quoted in the language, in the words, Arabic words, but realities are of a taqra'uma.
And the final thing is God knows. What I'm saying is, till the last man, he knows the final version of it. But according to our capacities, we keep knowing better and better and better.
Sanurihim ayatuna. He will keep on showing us the signs in the cosmos and in our own body, like body structure and design. So these are the ayat which he will show us to our mind, and then we will say what is written in the Quran is correct. So I think that defines the way. That was a great discussion, and Harun has also another question, I believe. Tawfiq, you are already there, and if you have any question, please come up later. And Wasim is there. So yes, Harun, please go ahead.
It was just thank you. Just to go back to the point about analysis and synthesis. So if you're talking about ayat being in the mind, but if it says that it's haq, and we're talking about physical changes or physical signs, for instance, if I say that clouds are formed from the evaporation of seawater, and I see that and observe it, and then I analyze it, the fact that the cloud is formed from the evaporation of seawater, that abstract idea does not exist in the cloud. It exists in the individual that perceives it. So the synthetic abstraction exists within the mind of the perceiving individual, but the actual manifestation of it is occurring externally. So I'm just wondering, when the Quran is pointed to the ability to synthesize new knowledge, so you could say, well, if I'm testing a theory in science and I have a theory, and then I go and I run an experiment, and the world, the external reality, objects to my theory in some specific way, well, then I form a new theory, and then I go and test that, and I repeatedly do that. That theory becomes increasingly closer to the correct abstraction from the movement of the perceived thing. So you're getting a more and more distilled form of that abstraction over time. And then if we go back to the idea of muhkamat, that Allah's explicitly stated abstract laws for us that cannot really be distilled any further, so they are as explicit and as reduced as they could be, but at the same time he's expressed ayat, so signs that are purely physical. I'm just wondering, so my point is really coming back to Iman, to be honest with you, but my thought was, well, if you're gradually changing your worldview based on ayat. So you're seeing an ayat, you see another one, you see another one, you're extracting ideas out of it. I don't think that's the same. I don't think that's the same as saying that ayat is in your mind, but rather that I don't think there's much difference. But
no, it's not
that,
my mind.
maybe
It's
there is.
changing my mind. It's changing my mind.
So you've got an idea, you've got a new idea that wasn't there
Exactly.
before.
Exactly. That's how you abrogate the previous one and get the new one.
So, but then with each one, you're changing your worldview increasingly.
Yes.
So the next time I see a cloud,
Yes.
I can expect that it will rain and the water will not be salty. But I would say that expectation is Iman. So that is, now that I've observed the law occurring over time, I've analyzed it, I've synthesized the abstraction, applying it to what has not yet become, or what is seemingly imperceptible, or potentially, is something that could become what it was meant to be. That is Iman. So my question is, I understand what you're saying. The Quran never says that you should have Iman in ayat, but is it rather the other way around, that Iman follows ayat, or Iman is the sum total of all abstractions that are synthesized from all ayat? Does that make sense?
Yeah, Dr. Umar Ramai.
Sure. Very good point, brother. Very good point. You raised several things, but let's tackle the last one because I cannot keep track of. Does Iman follow the ayat? I think precisely. I really think, I believe so. If someone comes to me with certain expertise and that person says, I'm a chemist and talk, I say, great, but if that person demonstrates something, then I am closer to believing, believing, that's the word, to have Iman in that person's abilities. So it makes a lot of sense, we don't want to overcomplicate things in the sense that Allah is saying, look around you, look at the material things, look at how the rain comes, it will revive the earth after it's dead. And he says, siru fil ard, you have to walk, you have to travel, dig, look. So all of them lead us to say, wow, this is a true book. This is a book that comes from a higher authority who is related to all of these things. I'm thinking while I'm talking, I have lots of things going in my head. I don't want to, jump to different directions. If one were to talk to a biologist or a physicist or a chemist or a grandmother, whatever, how would, it's okay, it's worth discussing right now, but what makes me believe that this book, which I have somewhere here, this book, is this Quran, a small version of the Quran, is from my Lord. Okay, what makes me believe in that? Okay, everything else is secondary, by the way. وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ. Muhammad was a messenger. Okay, he brought me this. Okay, so the fact that Muhammad lived or no lived, how behaved, has nothing to do with me believing whether this is from a higher authority or not. So the question is, how do I answer that? Let's be very frank, right? This is the question that each one of us who wants to have strong fundamental grounding in faith should answer. Now I can answer that different from you, but aside from that, each one of us has his own or her own background. But my question goes back to your question, beautiful question, isn't that the way to believe? What irrespective of our backgrounds or our approach, wouldn't that be the only reason to believe? To believe in what? You mentioned the word believe. Believe in what? To believe that this came from a higher authority, isn't it? what else? How else would I believe? How else? How else? I mean, so when we say Sadaq Allahu al-Azim, that Allah is truthful, shouldn't that be a reflection on what I find in it?
Yes.
Right? Rather than me, it's a challenge. I know some people are not comfortable with this. Absolutely, some people are not comfortable. That's why, that's why most Muslims are like zombies. I stand by this word, like zombies. That you ask him just a slightly deeper question, they panic. You know, they just want to follow what is claimed to be done 1400 years ago, you know. So that's a fundamental question. Each one of us, what takes us to the time of the Prophet when this was revealed, look, their perception was different from mine. They did not understand differential calculus at that time. They did not understand what the magic number, the natural number is. They didn't have telescopes. But did they have something? Did they have something that said, wow, there's ayat, right? Because there were ayat revealed to them. Okay, their lens, their filter saw something that I didn't, that I can't see. You know, when you go to the desert, I don't know if anyone has done it. If you go to a desert and stay there for 40 days, by the way, your perception about many things changes. You start seeing things that you don't see living in a cosmopolitan, busy city, you know? So the stories that we were told that Umar ibn al-Khattab was sitting and all of a sudden he heard a beautiful recitation and he said, wow, this is so beautiful. I don't buy it. I really don't buy it. When people, you know, at that time, not to deviate from the subject, when people at that time, they embraced this new religion, they must have seen something, okay? That's them. That's them. I have to see something. I need to see it right here. We give a talk, you know, so the manifestations, the fantastic manifestations, you know, if you look at isotopes, right? Isotopes, you know, two different isotopes. One you can create a nuclear bomb with, uranium. The other one you cannot make a hand grenade with. I mean, look at this precision. Okay, no wonder Allah says شهد الله أنه لا إله إلا هو والملائكة وأولو العلم قائما بالقسط شهد الله أنه لا إله إلا هو. Those, the third category, those who شهد الله لا إله إلا هو والملائكة وأولو العلم. The أولو العلم, they testified that there is only one deity. Look, they testified that there's only one deity. So all of these confluence or they converge to tell us, I think this, back to your question, is that to see something, to feel something, to sense something, to measure something, from which if this is important, if I see it, if I see the truth, okay, and I cover it, then that's what Allah is talking about in terms of kufr. Kafaru bi ayatillah, not yakfuru billah. There's a difference between yakfuru billah and yakfuru bi ayatillah. Absolutely. In summary, we really need to in my way to look at what you said is that Iman is not an absolute thing. Mu'min has a different meanings in the Mus'haf. Mu'min could be a peaceful person, by the way. You know, mu'min also implies someone who doesn't hurt anyone, okay? But to have Iman in what, okay? To have Iman in what? If I want to have Iman, okay, I need something to lead me to that Iman, okay? So, thank you, Brother Harun. Thank you. Brother Harun, are you from Australia or South Africa?
No, I'm from Glasgow. I'm in Jazra's son. So I'm from Glasgow. I'm sorry that I come across the Australian.
He's Umar brother. He's my son. He's a doctor.
MashaAllah,
And
MashaAllah.
he has a lot of interest in learning about the Quran.
Medical doctor or doctor of
Medical doctor.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah.
And the training at the moment.
Pleasure meeting you, brother Harun. Dr.
I
Harun.
told him, I said, you come along because Brother Umar is going to talk about Ayat, and I'm sure he's going to talk something different than what we know.
Thank you.
I thank you, Uncle. It was a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to be.
Brilliant questions he posed today. That's great. So I think now our time ends. So thank you very much to everyone who participated today with this great discussion. And Harun, your questions are very good. So we will continue next week, inshallah. Thank you, Dr. Omar.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your patience and coping with me. We'll see you all, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Inshallah, Aziz. Assalamu alaikum.